Hey everybody, Mike Eddy with you again today. I tried to do this on my lunch hour, didn't have the opportunity yesterday. I'm going to try to keep this a little more concise, a little less time. I didn't realize we went 20 minutes the last time. So today's topic is this: is our ministry that we are about Christ-centered or is it man-centered? It's really important. A couple passages come to mind. First of all is Acts chapter number 5. You remember Gamaliel, who was a Pharisee, talking about the apostles and kind of giving some reasonable advice to the people of the time about the apostles that, look, if what they're doing is of man, it's going to come to naught. It's going to end. But if it be of God, you can't overturn it. And his thought was, just sit back and watch and let's see. If it's of man, it's gonna fall apart. It's gonna fall apart at the seams. And that is what we are seeing happen within the independent fundamental Baptist movement that I grew up with. As it maybe didn't start that way, but it turned into a man-made movement. And again, I don't necessarily believe it started that way. So I want to make that clear distinction. But a lot of us have noticed that it did. Jesus said, I will build my church. I want to be very clear about that. He said, I will build my church. And yet we hear so many guys talk about this guy building that church, or this guy built that church, or this guy built that ministry. And these were guys in the past. And they talk about them and they built this, and you want to build something for God, and it becomes a flesh-driven. It's about what did they do to build their church? What did they do to build their church? And that's how I'm going to build my church. And it becomes about men. We even have passing the mantle conferences as if it's Elijah to Elisha. And I've heard preachers in my lifetime talking about Jack Hyles, saying that, I want a double portion of his spirit. You see these guys with conferences now where they're trying to carry on from Lester Roloff or Jack Hyles or Lee Robertson or Tom Malone, and they talk about these guys so much, and they get so upset if anybody says anything negative about them. And let me just say that I'm not sure that those men ever started out to get that praise. Let me be fair, and let me explain why. You look at the Pharisees, and what did they do? What did they spend their time doing? The Sadducees, the Pharisees, they were about the traditions of their father. They were about Moses, Abraham. But think about this for a minute. Think about this. God used Moses. God used Abraham. They were God's children that he used. They weren't bad. But what happened over time is it became about those men. It became about what did Moses say? And it became about the traditions of their own fathers in between Moses and them. And then when Christ shows up, they couldn't even see him. They couldn't even fathom him because they're so wrapped up in the traditions of their fathers. And that is what has happened. And that is why so many of us left. And that is why so many are leaving now, is because some pastors just can't make that break. It becomes about the traditions of their fathers. You have to have hymn books. They preach about hymn books. And they preach about Fanny Crosby and her hymns. And those are the hymns we want. Well, I got news. Those hymns were new. They were contemporary not that long ago when she wrote them, or whoever, Isaac Watts, I don't know, whoever you want to pick. The point is, people get so wrapped up in this, and we've got to hold tight to all these different traditions, even to the point where the order of service has to be a certain way, the ushers have to be a certain way, ushers have to wear a tie, and the ladies have to look a certain way in the choir, or whatever it might be. And we get so wrapped up in these traditions, and we have these national church growth conferences, the Sword of the Lord conferences, and it becomes about preserving old-time religion or preserving something. And it becomes about preserving a tradition of men or about men, and it's not of Christ. And that's why you've seen the decline of the independent Baptist movement. It used to be these colleges were full. You had Hyles Anderson at Tennessee Temple. You had some huge colleges. In fact, I think Tom Malone's college doesn't even exist anymore. Or if it does, it's very, very small. Hyles Anderson is a fraction of what it used to be. What has happened is people have started to notice that, hey, wait a minute, I'm following a man, and his philosophies, and some of us have realized some of the philosophies may not be bad, but when you say that that's what God said when he didn't, it's like, no, that's not going to work. Like, don't substitute what God actually said. And so you're seeing people leave, you're seeing people get out, and you're seeing people see for themselves that they want Christ, that they want to follow him, not a tradition. And so that is what's happening right now, and that's what continues to happen. But there are still a handful of guys, or 20 big name preachers, who just won't give it up. And if you watch this and you see this, I'm encouraging you. I'm not attacking you, I'm encouraging you. Give it up. It's not about you. It's not about promoting you. It's not about promoting old-time religion. It's not about keeping Jack Hyles alive. It's not about keeping Lee Roberson alive or Tom Malone alive. If our goal in this life is not so that we'll have a legacy to where people can talk about us. Our goal in this life is to do what Christ has called us to do and to point people to him. And hopefully people won't even remember our name when we die, but they'll remember that we pointed them to Christ. And so anyway, that's what I thought for today, is your ministry that you are part of a Christ-centered ministry or a man-centered ministry. So anyway, that's it for today. I'm keeping it shorter. We'll talk again. Take care.